Hello there, very good evening and welcome to the news at 6, where we get you the day's top stories that are developing at this hour. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. Cabinet committee headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviews the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Curfew continues in parts of the state as security forces conduct search operations in Uri and Nogam sectors. Prominent US lawmakers introduce an act to designate Pakistan as a state sponsor of terrorism. Ahead of his speech at the UN, Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif holds a telephonic conversation with his Army Chief General Raheel Sharif. Union Cabinet decides to merge the rail budget with the general budget, gives in principle approval to advance the presentation of the annual budget by a month. And at the UN General Assembly meet, Brazil's new president Michel Temer defends the impeachment of his predecessor Dilma Rousseff, while Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari claims his country is making inroads in its fight against Boko Haram. Top story this evening: in a significant departure from the past, the Union Cabinet decided to merge the rail budget with the Union budget. Further, it will also advance the presentation of the annual budget day by a month. The CCEA also approved capital grant of 5,176 crores to GAIL to develop the 2,539-kilometer long Jagdishpur-Haldia and Bokaro-Dhamra gas pipeline project.
There will be only one budget, which will be the general budget, and all proposals with regard to the railways will be a part of the general budget.
The Union Cabinet on Wednesday decided to end a 92-year-old tradition by merging the rail budget with the general budget. In order to make the exercise simpler, it also approved the removal of classifications for expenditure. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also announced the in-principle decision to advance the date of budget presentation in Parliament from the usual February end.
While we in principle are in favor of finishing the entire financial business of the government before 31st of March, so that the implementation can begin on the 1st of April and the expenditures can begin, the taxation proposals can begin. The actual dates will be decided after a consultation depending on the calendar of the state assembly elections.
The Rail Minister said the merger of the rail and general budgets will not impact the functional autonomy of the railways. Instead, it will help in enhancing capital expenditure.
रेलवे की जो डिस्टिंक्ट आइडेंटिटी है द डिपार्टमेंटली रन कमर्शियल एंटरप्राइज इट विल बी बरकरार रहेगी, जैसे वित्त मंत्री जी ने कहा. फाइनेंशियल पावर रूल्स पावर जनरल मैनेजर डीआरएम को जो आज हमें उनको दे के रखे, वो भी उसी तरह से बरकरार रहेंगे. रेलवे को जो डिविडेंड देने की बड़ी लायबिलिटी होती थी 10,000 करोड़ से भी ज़्यादा, वो भी देने की ज़रूरत नहीं होगी.
The Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs also approved viability gap funding of 40% of the estimated cost of 12,940 crore to GAIL to develop the 2,539-kilometer long Jagdishpur-Haldia and Bokaro-Dhamra gas pipeline project.
2539 किलोमीटर की ये पाइपलाइन बनेगा. उत्तर प्रदेश, बिहार, झारखंड, वेस्ट बंगाल और ओडिशा, ऐसे 5 राज्यों में ये स्प्रेड होगी.
In an attempt to check rising prices, the cabinet extended stock holding limits on traders of pulses, edible oils and oilseeds by 1 year till September 30th, 2017. It also gave ex post facto approval for the 20% hike in the pension given to freedom fighters and their descendants. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, so one country, one budget. For more on this, we're joined by a correspondent, Vishal Daya, who of course was tracking those developments. Vishal, you know, what we've seen, of course, is post-late 90s especially, the railway budget has really been seen as something important for the coalition partners. We've seen so many coalition governments, of course, since then. How are other political parties reacting to this? We do know Rahul Gandhi, of course, has said that there should be perhaps a Kisan budget.
Well, yes. See, as far as the railway budget is concerned, Tracy, then you put it in a right perspective. This was sort of a, in the last 2 decades, it had become a sort of a tool of political bargain between various coalition partners as well. And we've seen how, the railway minister used to be either from the state of Bihar or from the state of West Bengal. And since these two states had very important coalition partners for the last almost 2 decades in almost every government, so clearly, this is something which was being, criticized as well as which was being talked about of a particular change which needs to be brought out. And this indication that, the NDA government will go ahead and merge the railway budget with the union budget had come in almost immediately after Suresh Prabhu had taken over as the railway minister, although he had presented one railway budget. But then there were indications coming in from the NDA government and from the railway ministry itself that also this finance ministry, that some sort of consolidation needs to be done at this point in time from two perspectives. One perspective is from the railway ministry, because the railway ministry's, the railway ministry's burden as far as the expenditure is concerned. One, two, paying the dividends are concerned. Almost 10,000 crore rupees is the dividend budget of the railway ministry, which it pays every year to the finance ministry. So all these things would have been taken care of immediately if the merger is done. And once the merger now, which has been announced by the government, the cabinet has decided in its favor. So all these, these budget woes for the railway ministry, the expenditure woes for the railway ministry will be taken care of. One, two, the government says that it is not going to lose its distinct identity, as in all those officials at different levels who have the financial powers to go ahead and spend money and use them for better facilities as well as better infrastructure for the railways. That will remain intact, and this is something which is not going to be an impediment for the railways in future, but rather will come as a helping factor. Apart from that, there is one more decision which has been taken apart from the merger, is the advancement of the budget session itself. Now, this is something which the finance minister has himself explained quite a number of times to ensure that the expenditure, and as far as the financially is concerned, that begins straight away from 1st of April 2017. And this time around, the government is also hoping that it will be able to roll out GST from 1st April 2017. So it's going to be really, really crucial for the government to ensure that this merger as well as advancement of the presentation of budget goes smoothly.
Absolutely. And while we are talking about the big national story, which is, of course, one country, one budget, the other big focus, of course, also has been the aftermath of the Uri attack, Vishal. And we understand the CCS, of course, meeting on that. Give us a sense of what we saw there, what eventually came out, because some reports now saying Manohar Parrikar, the defense minister, in fact, admitting at an event that there were perhaps some lapses. Can you give us some idea of what came out of that?
Well, the lapses as far as that particular attack is concerned is something which is at the core of, which has rather been at the core of the discussion since last 3 days, both, at that meeting which took place at Prime Minister's residence on Monday, as well as 2 meetings which were chaired by the Home Minister on Monday and Tuesday as well. And in our sources say that in today's Cabinet Committee on Security also, this was one core agenda as to how come, 4 terrorists were able to go ahead and penetrate several layers of security to attack the army base in Odi on Sunday. But apart from that, as far as the future course of action is concerned, our sources say that that was also deliberated upon, but there is not much clarity as of now as to what will be the government's final response, what will be the structured response of the government. We are also being told that right now when we are speaking, there is a meeting of core group of the BJP which is ongoing at the Prime Minister's residence, and that core group also had several senior union ministers also. So clearly, this is going to be one more, marathon session in which the top leadership of the ruling party as well as the government will have an opportunity to debate and to come to a conclusion as to what should be the next course of action as far as the Odi attack and its diplomatic offensive against Pakistan is concerned.
Absolutely. It needs to be stronger than before, but definitely not rash, is what a lot of people, of course, saying at this point of time. Thanks so much, Vishal, for joining us with those details there. And continuing with Uri, counter-infiltration operations along the line of control in Kashmir enter the second day today, even as the army conducted search operations to recover bodies of terrorists killed in the failed infiltration attempts in Nogam and the Uri sectors. Meanwhile, curfew continued to remain in effect in various parts of Jammu and Kashmir.
Counter-infiltration operations along the line of control in Uri and Naugam sectors of Kashmir Valley entered the second day on Wednesday. 1 soldier and 10 terrorists were killed on Tuesday during the operation as the hunt for suspected militants continues.
पाकिस्तान एक गुनहगार प्रवृत्ति का देश बन चुका है। आतंकी देश बोल के दुनिया में उसके सामने प्रतिमा आ गई है और जो भी हुआ है देश की सारी जनता दुखी भी है, गुस्से में भी है और स्वयं प्रधानमंत्री जी इस मामले को देख रहे हैं, नजदीक से काम कर रहे हैं उस पर।
Soon after the horrific Uri attack, demand for a swift surgical strike on terror camps in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir have arisen. Political parties, civilians as well as defense experts are demanding a quick and befitting response.
प्रधानमंत्री को धन्यवाद देना चाहिए कि जो लोग कहते थे प्रधानमंत्री विदेश में रहते हैं तो उसका आज नतीजा हुआ है कि प्रधानमंत्री का पर्सनल रिपोर्ट जो है सब देश के साथ और सब देश के प्रमुख के साथ इतना नज़दीकी हो गया है और उन्होंने कन्विंस कर दिया कि पाकिस्तान जो है एक आतंकवादी राष्ट्र है।
We must be alert now. We have got to be on our toes. Our military will have to be agile because any attempt to infiltrate and then strike terror has to be stopped at the very inception.
We are proud of the fact that our armed forces have been able to retaliate in terms of sending out a clear message to the Pakistani terrorists that, look, such infiltration will be met with a strong hand. I think this is just not enough. Not only a message must go deep down, but the fierce psychosis must stick into every terrorist's head that he is going to the gallows in India.
In Srinagar, curfew remained in force in 3 police station areas as curbs were lifted from other parts following slight improvement in the tense atmosphere. Normal life, however, remained affected in the valley. Wednesday was the 75th consecutive day of restrictions. Shops, business establishments and petrol pumps continued to remain shut in Srinagar and elsewhere in the valley, while public transport was off the roads. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And here's a look at some more updates from across the country in Nationwide. Aam Aadmi Party leader Amanatullah Khan was arrested in connection with a sexual harassment case filed by his sister-in-law. This is the second time in 3 months that the leader has faced action by Delhi police. However, Khan alleges that he is being framed by the police, which is under pressure to arrest him. The Supreme Court on Wednesday said a new Maharashtra law prohibiting liquor in dance bars is absurd and indicative of the state's regressive mentality. The Maharashtra government, however, refused to back down, arguing that a state has an absolute right to ban liquor at any spot of its choice within the state. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Wednesday blamed Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his name being included in an FIR regarding alleged illegalities in appointments in the Delhi Commission for Women. Kejriwal said a special session of the Delhi Assembly would be called to discuss the issue. The complainant was, of course, former DCW Chief Barkha Singh Shukla and was filed against the current DCW Chief Swati Maliwal. With that, a quick break here. We'll be back with more news in a bit. Stay with us.
Gyan Chopper is the ancient version of Indian snakes and ladders. This intriguing game was popular among the old, the young, and the rulers as well. The chopper has its origin in the Jain philosophy. It tells the story of virtue, symbolized by the ladders, rewarded, while the vices shown by the snakes are punished. Each square, in turn, also narrates some message of wisdom.
Tales that inspire. Stories of social change. A salute to diversity. Promoting public discourse. Events that motivate. Inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries.
Harappan sites are a treasure trove of sophisticated pottery. These creations show tremendous advances by the potter's wheel. Creations like the perforated jar, the copper axe, the chisel and knives astound even present-day archaeologists. Figurines depicting yoga poses, chess pieces display a complexity unsurpassed even by later-day civilizations, all of which make the Harappan civilization truly unique.
Art arisen from a multi-hued cultural canvas. Tradition and cultural fervor dating back centuries. And encircling them all, there's a magic that awes. Embrace your nation's brilliant human warmth. Watch Colours of India, Sundays at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. Let's now get you some more details from the UNGA summit. Just hours ahead of his UNGA speech, a huge setback for Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. 2 US lawmakers moved a bill in the US House of Representatives to designate Pakistan as a terrorist state. US Secretary of State John Kerry, in his meeting with the Pakistani Prime Minister, also advised him to exercise restraint on nuclear activities. Pakistan, however, responded by saying that its nuclear activities cannot be limited.
Even as Pakistan tries to shore up international support over Kashmir, 2 American lawmakers introduced an act in the House of Representatives to designate the country as a state sponsor of terrorism. Republican Ted Poe, who is chairman of the House Subcommittee on Terrorism, and Democrat Dana Rohrabacher, a ranking member of the subcommittee, moved the Pakistan State Sponsor of Terrorism Designation Act, saying it is time the United States stop paying Pakistan for its betrayal and designate it for what it is. In a statement, Ted Poe said, not only is Pakistan an untrustworthy ally, but Islamabad has also aided and abetted enemies of the United States for years. From harboring Osama bin Laden to its cozy relationship with the Haqqani network, there is more than enough evidence to determine whose side Pakistan is on in the war on terror, and it's not America's. The congressman also called on President Barack Obama to issue a report within 90 days of the passage of the act, detailing whether or not Pakistan has provided support for international terrorism. He further called for a follow-up report from US Secretary of State John Kerry, determining that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism, or a detailed justification as to why Pakistan does not meet the legal criteria for designation. Another congressman, Pete Olson, extended support to every effort that brings to book the perpetrators of the Uri attack. Even though the bill against Pakistan is largely symbolic, considering the current Congress is now in its final days, it's being seen as a setback to Pakistan's efforts to raise the stakes on the Kashmir issue.
आतंकवाद से कोई केवल अकेला भारत प्रभावित नहीं है, पूरी दुनिया प्रभावित है और अमन के दुश्मनों और इंसानियत के कातिलों के साथ कोई नहीं खड़ा हो सकता.
Pakistan is the world's worst terrorist exporting country. Their terrorism export exceeds their export of economic goods and services, and they have given themselves, a very great people, very good, decent people, they've given themselves a bad name as a country by exporting and encouraging this kind of nonsense. So I think the US would be well within its rights, but I would expect other countries to follow suit one by one.
We certainly would welcome that if such moves are taking place elsewhere in the world, and particularly in the United States, where two congressmen thought that they should get some official or authenticated version of Pakistan being a terrorist state. Endeavor is on. We are also trying our best to isolate Pakistan and to be identified as a state indulging in terror.
Glad that this long overdue step has been taken. I hope it gathers adequate support in the US Senate and is transformed into law. Quite automatically it will then be reflected. Also it will be followed up in the United Nations.
On Tuesday, US Secretary of State John Kerry had also urged Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to exercise restraint in its nuclear ambitions. Pakistan, however, responded in the negative, with Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations, Maliha Lodhi, saying its nuclear program cannot be limited and the world should put an end to India's atomic activities first. However, news reports suggest that Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif may tone down his rhetoric against India in his UNGA speech. This following an earful from Western interlocutors on terrorism emanating from Pakistani soil. Nawaz Sharif also spoke to Pakistani Army Chief Rahil Sharif over the phone on Wednesday, ahead of his UNGA speech. The two are reported to have discussed the situation in Kashmir and tense relations with India after the Uri terror attack. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
We'll of course keep tracking Sharif's speech. Meanwhile, various heads of state addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, while Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi told the Assembly that too little had been done to help fleeing migrants coming across the Mediterranean. The new Brazilian president defended the impeachment action against his predecessor, Dilma Rousseff.
Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, stating that Italy accepted the challenge launched by the President of the United States to the General Assembly.
Del Mediterraneo, il luogo nel quale ci giocheremo la sfida della dignità, perché se non rimettiamo al centro i valori di umanità e di pietas in quell'area geografica, in quel fazzoletto, in quello spicchio di mondo.
Renzi was responding to pledges gathered by the US President Barack Obama from dozens of countries to resettle or allow lawful admission to some 360,000 refugees. This is double the number of slots available this year. Renzi, in his speech, urged the world and Europe in particular to do more to help the Mediterranean Sea, which migrants cross to come to Europe, a safer and more human place. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari discussed his country's progress in the fight against Boko Haram militant group.
Nigeria has made remarkable progress in our resolve to defeat Boko Haram, whose capacity to launch orchestrated attacks as a formed group has been severely degraded. In the last few months, their operations have been limited to sporadic use of improvised explosive devices against soft targets. Nigeria has continued to combat terrorism based on the established rules of engagement and in conformity with international best practices.
Brazil's new president, Michel Temer, on the other hand, told the international community that the impeachment of his predecessor Dilma Rousseff was conducted with absolute respect for the Constitution.
Senhor Presidente, senhoras e senhores, trago às Nações Unidas, por fim, uma mensagem de compromisso inegociável com a democracia. O Brasil acaba de atravessar processo longo e complexo, regrado e
Peru's President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski flagged his country's concerns about Venezuela.
Es imprescindible que mencione nuestra preocupación por la crítica situación política, económica y social que vive el amigo país de Venezuela. La plena
It was Kuczynski's first appearance at the UNGA after taking office in July. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani, Myanmar's government leader Aung San Suu Kyi and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe are among the speakers expected to address the United Nations General Assembly on the second day. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And here are more international news updates in Global Buzz. At least 20 people were killed in flash floods triggered by torrential rains in Indonesia's West Java province. The local authorities identified 15 bodies, while 5 of them are still going through identification process. Hundreds of homes were destroyed by the floods and many residents have been forced to take refuge at local government facilities. Jeremy Corbyn was elected the leader of Britain's opposition Labour Party, defeating former Labour ministers. The 67-year-old initially did not expect to win the contest, but struck a chord with many supporters with his policies of taxing the rich, nationalising the railways and nuclear disarmament. With Corbyn the favourite to win when the result is eventually announced on the 24th of September, the party faces a major struggle to try and reunite. An attacker was shot and wounded near the Israeli embassy in Ankara today. The Turkish police said that the assailant shouted Allahu Akbar outside the embassy before he was shot in the leg. The suspect appeared to be mentally unstable. So far, he has not been found to have any links to any organization. U.S. federal prosecutors charge Ahmed Khan Rahami, an Afghan-American, for the New York bombing. The bombing had left at least 31 people wounded. Rahami had allegedly carried out twin bombings on Saturday in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood and along the route of a U.S. Marine Corps run in the New Jersey town of Seaside Park. He was critically wounded in a police shootout on Monday and will be transported to Manhattan to face the charges. All right, some cricket news now, and in a clear show of defiance to the Supreme Court appointed Lodha committee, the BCCI has named a 5-member selection committee headed by former wicketkeeper batsman MSK Prasad. The panel comprises of 2 members with no test experience, despite the Lodha panel recommending a 3-member panel, all with test experience. The new panel was headed and in fact has been decided at the BCCI's 87th annual general meeting, held in the backdrop of the Lodha committee recommendations, which have not been accepted by the board as yet. Prasad replaced Sandeep Patil as the chairman of the selectors. The 41-year-old former player has played 6 tests and 17 ODIs. Of the 4 other members, 2, Gagan Khoda and Jatin Paranjpe, have no test experience. The new selection committee has a combined international experience of just 13 tests and 31 ODIs. Meanwhile, the Indian team captain Virat Kohli has said that even though he is not overly worried about the test team's recent struggles against spinners, this aspect was being worked upon. Coming ahead of the country's 500th test match, this will be a tall task. India lost to Sri Lanka in the Galle test last year due to their inability to tackle spin. Sri Lankan spinner Rangana Herath had wreaked havoc as India struggled to chase 176 and were all out for 112. Herath had taken 7 wickets in the second innings, evoking criticism and raising questions about the Indian team's traditional strength against spin. India will play the milestone test against New Zealand in Kanpur. The pitch at Green Park is expected to assist spinners, and this could spell trouble for Kohli's side.
Putting in more effort to bat against the spinners longer in nets. Practicing small little things by ourselves as batsmen, whatever the strengths are. Someone might sweep, someone might play off the back foot, whatever it is, step out. We're trying to improve that area of our game slowly so that we can cover all bases. If you want to be a champion side, you obviously don't want to give the opposition any window to get into the game. And that is one area that, as you rightly mentioned, we have recognized that needs to be worked on through the course of this season. And the good thing is that we are playing a lot of test cricket.
And that's all we have for you on the news at 6. Thank you so much for joining us.